Well, what's up, guys? My name is Anthony. I am 23 years old. I am the high school pastor over at North Coast Ramona, and this is my story. I'm really excited to be able to give this, and hopefully it'll speak to you. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. So I was born June 13th, 1996 in Redwood City, California. So in the Bay Area, where it's being quarantined right now. But yeah, I was born there. I was born into a family where my parents are both Filipino. I'm Filipino. And so that dynamic was weird, especially growing up. But it was, I get a different perspective, which is cool. But I grew up where I was baptized in the Catholic faith. My mom was Catholic. My dad was evangelical Christian, and they lived this. My dad had this relationship, whereas my mom, she would say that she had a religion with God. So my mom, I think our lives changed when my mom got saved. She was in a Bible study. We used to have Bible studies at our house, and my mom and the pastor at the house gave this analogy of if you just have religion, you're just like this rose in a vase, and and there's no water at the bottom. You may look pretty on the outside, but at the bottom, on the inside, you're dying, and you're dead. And so that's how she accepted the Lord. Like, clicked in her mind. The Lord gave her this revelation, and she accepted the Lord, which is amazing. And from that day forward, my parents like striving toward the same goal, praying for my brother. I have a little brother. His name's Andrew, but he's not that little. He's 6 foot, and he's like 200 something pounds. He's gigantic, way bigger than me. It's awesome. But they since that time, like they just prayed for us like constantly. My mom, I remember, I just know she would sing worship songs to us for us to fall asleep when we were kids, and we would read our Bibles, and she'd pray for our future wives like every single day. Like before bed. I remember that. Like, I had a great example of what godly parents were, which is crazy. Really crazy cool. My dad would play in the worship bands, and they helped plant churches, and I had like amazing parents growing up, and it's God's been faithful to me in that, and like so I've been so blessed in that way. And so with that, it's been like growing up with that has been cool. But I mean, I grew up in the church. I mean, I don't know. I know maybe some of us can relate where you grew up in the church and it's just not special anymore. It's just, if we're just going to church, it's a Sunday thing. Or, it's just a youth group thing. Like, and it doesn't become special anymore. And I think that's what happened to me, where I knew all the right answers. I checked all the boxes. Like, every day I would read my Bible. Whenever I got money, I'd give money. I put money in the jar. And so, like, my parents trained me up really well. And I'd say it started as this relationship and then moved on into a religion, if that would make sense, where I was just checking the boxes, making myself look good on the outside. And I wasn't, I didn't really know what it meant. And this, going into junior high, we moved up to a town called Barrozo, California. And there, everyone else was white. So I was the only brown kid. It was really weird. Like, growing up in a place like that, where like you're different, you look different, what you eat is different, your house smells different because of all the food that's cooked in it. It's different. But yeah, it was a weird experience. Especially I was going to I remember going to school, and I was praying, and I know this is when I knew my faith set me apart. Was when, kind of backtracking, was in 3rd grade. I remember I was praying in the cafeteria at lunch, and I had some kids say, "Oh, nice, Anthony, go pray to the moon," and like, were just like making fun of me. And that just kind of stuck with me in 3rd grade. And after lunch, like during recess, I had 3 5th graders beat me up. It was just horrible. And I just remember, like, man, this Christianity thing, like, it really costs some stuff, like being made fun of and stuff. So my parents, after that, like, wanting to shelter me from the world, they sent me to a private school, a Christian school. And I went from there, from junior high all the way through high school. And that school changed my life, where I had teachers like investing in me, loving on me, and but I still didn't understand what it was about. I called myself a Christian, and I went to church and all the right stuff, but yet on the inside I didn't really want to do it. I was, I guess, back in junior high, or I think it started like at the end of junior high. I got introduced to pornography, and that wrecked me. That changed my life. Like I remember being addicted to pornography for a long time, throughout high school, and I think that like brought me to a really low spot, where it really transitioned that at that point from from a relationship to a religion, because I was just doing the right stuff, make myself look good, but didn't know what it meant. And I remember in high school, same thing. Live in this religion, and my buddies and I had like four really close guys, and we would just like cuss all the time. We would make fun of other people, would bully other kids, and we got to the point where we were like, even like a buddy and I were just we drink in Bible class. Like, it's crazy. Like, we would drink alcohol in school and think it was like the best thing in the world. Like, oh, we're getting away with it. And I just know that what I was doing wasn't right. Like, I was calling myself a Christian. I knew how to play the guitar and sing, so they were asking me to lead worship. So I was like up there singing, playing the guitar, leading worship my sophomore year of high school, addicted to pornography, drinking alcohol during school, like cussing kids out. So I lived this life of like, I look like this on the outside, but when I was away from people, I looked completely different. When I was off the stage, I looked completely different. And I lived my life that way for a long time until I remembered my junior year, end of junior year of my high school experience. A group of friends and I were sitting in a hot tub, and I remember this night like it was just yesterday, because it changed my life. Like, we were sitting in a hot tub that night, and it was raining. And my buddies and I were cracking jokes, and my friend wasn't really laughing. And I remember kind of getting weird vibes about it. And I remember asking him, like, dude, like, what's going on, man? Like, what's up with you? And I remember what his response were. He said two things. He said, man, like, we call ourselves Christians, and yet this is how we're living. And he called all of us out. He risked everything to call us out. And he even said, man, we call ourselves men, but we're just boys of the world. And it hit all of our hearts. Our buddy, our best friend, calling us out, saying that what we are saying, how we're living, isn't the right way we need to be living. And from that point on, like, in that hot tub, we all committed our lives to the Lord. And yes, there's been ups and downs, but with that, that's when I committed my life to the Lord, in that hot tub, and it changed my life. And I remember the summer before my senior year, I remember going with those buddies. We went to the Yuba River. We got a tent, and we said, you know what, we're gonna fast for 24 hours. And we didn't eat food, and it's the first time we've ever done it. So we were like, oh my gosh, I'm starving. I don't know. We don't know what we're doing. And we fasted for 24 hours. We prayed over our school. We prayed over our senior year, and God honored that. It was crazy. Like, our senior year, God like stirred up this revival in our school, where like everyone, even though it was a Christian school, like everyone played religion, but our senior year, for some reason, kids were like on fire for the Lord, like on their faces, worshiping God, raising their hands. It was crazy. Like, every single day we had some worship thing going on, and like students were raising their hands, people were getting healed. It was like nuts. And I got to see God like do crazy things. And how that's that's when faith really became real. I think it was really cool. And going into college, I remember like saying, oh, I'm gonna carry my faith into college. Like, I don't care who my roommates are. Like, I'm gonna be a strong Christian. I went to Grand Canyon University, Christian school, but I remember going in there with my roommates. Weren't the best. Like, I remember my roommate was like Tumblr famous, Twitter famous, like social media famous. He was like a influencer or whatever, but he had like tons of followers. So he was like this guy on campus that everybody knew, and everybody knew he was like trouble, and he wanted to be my roommate, which is crazy. And I felt so honored, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be light to this dude. And I remembered me like when the year started, I remember just compromising little by little. And it's just kind of like that analogy where it's like, how do you cook a frog? And you put a frog in like in a pot with some water at the bottom, and you turn up the heat just a little bit. Because if you turn the heat up all the way, the frog will freak out and jump out. But if you turn up the heat just a little bit, and the frog gets like used to it, and he gets used to it, and then he gets cooked. And that's what I did, is I compromised a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. I started smoking cigarettes with him, started drinking a lot with him. And so I was that frog. I was getting like compromising little by little by little. And then I was cooked. I had no faith. I would say at that point, I was not living as a Christian should. And I don't think I even was a Christian. I'm not saying that you could lose your faith, but I was just saying that like, I chose my sin over God at that point. And obviously God would never leave me because he captured my heart. I remember after like months and months of that, I was so depressed of like running away from God, again, addicted to pornography, and drinking every night, smoking every night. I did that with my roommates, and I remember being so depressed where I'd have to drink myself to sleep because I knew it was right, but I wasn't doing it. And just all because I wanted to be accepted, all because like I'm a people pleaser, and I wanted to be like accepted by these people. And I remember one morning I woke up and I said, enough's enough. So I got down on my knees and I prayed this prayer from Psalms, and I said, God, restore to me the joy of your salvation. God, like make me joyful in who you are again, because I can't do this anymore. I just remember praying that over and over again, like, God, give me joy of just knowing you. Like, I want to be joyful in that. I want to be fulfilled in that. I remember begging God, and in my bedroom on my knees is where I recommitted my life to the Lord. And the crazy thing is that next week, all my roommates that like weren't following God at all, they committed their lives to God, which was it was crazy. From that point on, I just started. We started doing Bible studies, and it grew from like 8 people to 100, like in like a few weeks. Like, it was like crazy how God moved, and that's when I started doing ministry and pursuing that. And now I'm here at North Coast Church, and I mean, there's still a lot to unpack with that. And so I moved back home, and I was I started doing ministry. I was interning at my church, and I remember this church I was interning at, they had all like silver heads. Everyone was old, and it was cool because like I was interning at this youth program, and I remember like all my life really I've been distracted with girls, and like just like I remember looking in my classroom and being like, oh, which girl am I gonna like this year? Like I remember doing that, and I remember just my heart being like so like ready to give everything to a girl, and yet I never had a girlfriend, not by choice, but because I was horrible. I didn't know how to talk to girls. Like I never learned, and I was just like too much and gross and all this stuff. But I remember saying, you know what, God, when I came home to start ministry, I remember saying, God, you know what, I don't want to I don't want to pursue any girl. I just want to pursue you. Because I remember him saying to me, like, for the rest of your life, you're going to have that. You're going to have someone, you're going to have a wife, you're going to have someone with you. But at this moment in your singleness, it's a very special time because you're never going to have this again. with me, like never. And so I lived by that, and I said, you know what, God, I'm not gonna pursue anyone. And I confessed my sin of and my addiction of pornography. I confessed all that stuff to him, and close friends around me, and I told them, and they keep me accountable even today. But I just know, I don't know, it was crazy because a few months later I see this like amazing, gorgeous girl sitting in the stands of our bleachers at the church, and she was the only head in the room that didn't have gray, which was crazy. And I remember saying, God, you know what? If this girl comes back next week, I'll talk to her, maybe. Like, I was so afraid. And I remember saying that. And next week, lo and behold, she was there. And I remember standing up on the balcony, and she was down getting like donuts or whatever. And I remember like just forcing myself, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And I just ran down the stairs, and I just word vomited out, are you new here? And I remember it being the most awkward thing. And then I did this. Don't do this, guys. And then I DM'd her on Instagram. And I said something like, hey, like, if you ever want to like start getting involved in the high school ministry, like, please let me know, or like, let's get to know each other. And I remember her saying, and I remember asking her for her number, and she said, sure, here's my number. She gave me her number. And I remember asking her out to coffee, and she said no. I mean, she said yes, but I don't want anything. And this is my response. This is the cheesiest, most Christian response ever, and it was, well, at the very least, I'll gain a sister in Christ. And I remember saying that, and it was so bad. And she still remembers it to this day, which is crazy. And I remember her telling me, we just like at that first, like, I guess I would call it a date. She wouldn't, because she didn't want it to be. But we at Starbucks, and I remember her walking by, and I remember thinking I didn't want to go. I didn't want to be there because like I didn't want to get my heart broken again. I didn't want to be vulnerable with a person again. And I remember seeing her walk by me, and I was sitting at this table outside, and I remember thinking, mate, what if I just didn't say anything? I just walked away. And at the very last second before she came in, I said, "Oh, Emily," and I ran over and I opened the door for her. She had never had anyone open the door for her before like that, which is crazy. That first date at Starbucks, we started talking, and and that we planned just to meet for coffee, and we ended up meeting. Our first date was like 3.5, 4, 5 hours. Of us just like, we told each other our testimonies, our stories, and then we went to each other's high schools, and we gave each other a tour of each other's high school, and like gave each other memories, and it was amazing. And I remember thinking like, God, like what's the point of this? Like, are you just like teasing me? Like, are you, it's like, what is this? Like, I remember constantly asking that, getting on my knees like every night, asking God, like, God, what is the point of this relationship? And I remember after like weeks of hanging out like that and getting to know each other, like talking, like just having like hours and hours of conversation, I asked her, I said, Emily, can I ask your dad if I can take you on a date? And she like was taken back by that. She's like, why would you ask my dad? I was like, it's the way I was raised. So I was gonna ask her dad if I could take her out. She said yes. And then that next day, she texted me and she said, "No, I can't do this. I can't be in a relationship right now." All because, I mean, maybe you'll hear her testimony through this, but because she was hurt in the past, like really bad, and so, like, and long story short, it was like 8 months of me pursuing her, of me saying like, it doesn't matter, like even if we're not together, I still want to be your best friend. And I remember like God putting it in my heart like if anything, like be the example of what like a godly man should be, what she should be looking for in your friendship. So like in our friendship, like I really liked her and she knew it, because we talked about it. But I remember us being best friends through it. And I remember one night I was on my knees praying, and I remember God saying to me, remember before, even when you're married to her, keep me first in your heart. And it was so confusing because all the signs were showing that like, there's no way she's gonna like want to even date me. And God says like, oh, when you're married, like, keep me first in your heart. And I remember like keeping that, I heard that like while I was praying one night, and I don't take that lightly of that. Like that was like a crazy thing I felt like God said to me. And I remember that next day, one of our students came up to us and she's like, hey, I have dreams. Like my family has dreams sometimes. And like, we believe like some of them, like some of these dreams are from God, which is crazy. And that student said told me like, I had a dream, or she told Emily, I had a dream of yours and Anthony's wedding last night. Like the same night that I heard that from God, which is like so radical and so crazy. But that was nuts. And 8 months later, Emily finally like was praying and praying. Like after 8 months of praying on her end too, she finally got like confirmation from God. Like, yeah, this is right. You and Anthony, this is right. And then we got married. We got engaged 8 months later after dating, and then 8 months after we were engaged, we got married. So it's pretty awesome. And people were like, would look at us, like even my family, my extended family was like, dude, you guys are crazy. But like, dude, when you know, you know. And we believe that we got like confirmation from God, and yeah, and we've been married for a year and some change now. But marriage has been amazing, and I could talk forever. But now I'm the high school pastor at North Coast Ramona. This wasn't my plan, but God brought us out here from Northern California, and I could say that I don't know. I love it. I love the students, and we love where we live, and what I think is what I think God is teaching me now. I think this is kind of a important thing. Is like I guess two things. Is like the church is not a museum for saints, but it's a hospital for the broken. And second is like reverence for God. How a lot of us have lost reverence for who God is, and we've made Christianity so normal in our life where it shouldn't be. It should be this amazing radical thing that we wake up with every morning, like saying, "Thank you, God. Thank you, God, for choosing me. Like I don't deserve it, and it's not because of anything that I've done, but it's because of everything that who He is." So, yeah, my name's Anthony, and I'm sorry that was long, but that was my story.